Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, always fixing my mic here in the moment. Of course, you guys know the name, you know the place. I want to thank you guys for tuning into today for a members only, patrons only show. As we will, I promise you guys, keep this up throughout the off season, as it's been kind of action packed early on this off season. So just trying to do a lot of background work here on some of the stuff going on with the ongoing business of the day, being specifically the moving on from Carroll and this head coaching search. So things will kind of patter down a little bit now, I think, and kind of smooth back into typical off-season form at this point. But today, business continued to keep on rolling on as we had our first press conference with Mike McDonald here, announced as your initial Seattle Seahawks head coach. This is, of course, a hiring I think that pretty much everyone feels over the moon about, for the most part, to good. There's a few naysayers that might say, words like tepid, I guess is what I heard last night on my show reference. But it nonetheless does feel like a really good hire. It does feel like Washington's had to take Dan Quinn as kind of a consolation prize. And so we did get a bit more of an opportunity today to step inside the mind of McDonald. And we're going to probably do a couple of these type of shows throughout this offseason as I go out and I'm already kind of scouring the landscape to find some interviews and him talking, giving a little bit more insight into his philosophy, his approach. And because that's what we're going to have to, we've had a coach here for so very long that we understood Pete back and forth. Pete didn't almost have to give press conferences because we knew what he would think about any given play or any given situation, just by the fact that you'd been with the guy for 14 years and had been through so many of those and understood him. And with Mike, it's of course a little bit of a different story now. You got to go to square one with the guy. So we're going to play some clips today from the press conference and discuss them a little bit as well and go into some of the things. I am more encouraged than ever coming on the heels of this press conference. I hope you guys feel the same, as I thought he handled himself, spoke well, was on, the D-time. You look at a guy like that and just the way he carries himself, first the way, like, let's say, a Nick Sirianni, and how he sort of carried himself when he first took, some of his kind of rough road there to begin things there with the Eagles. Not that Sirianni hasn't gotten things turned around, but it was an impressive press conference. John obviously was sitting there bubbling with excitement. He was like a 5-year-old kid that couldn't contain himself in the chair, just we're great, And so it was cool to see that there's definitely a little bit of electricity, it seems, in the room with this hire. In general terms, the things that have emerged, and some of these clips will put a little bit more bright light upon these very items, but a few things that have emerged here that I think are interesting within this is, first, let's lead with the grand news of the day, which I'm sure many of you are hearing about, and that is that Ben Grubb, the former Washington Husky offensive coordinator who was then taken with the board down to Alabama when he traveled, might be coming back to Seattle as the offensive coordinator. This is certainly, we got to address this one off the top. I know me and Brendan will be on the B&B show talking about this one probably to begin things, but this would be a magnificent hire for McDonald, in my opinion. There is we'll go with the T. Martin and then go with one of your defensive coaches approach, which feels a little bit boring and not out the box. It's an out the box kind of hire in a lot of respects. You're not just going for a known quantity. You're trying to find a little bit higher than that on this particular hire with McDonald. So why not do the same when it comes to the offensive coordinator? Why not try to push that ball a little bit higher as well? And when it comes to Grubb and his spread-based, air raid-ish kind of concepts that he's going to bring to play, it would be a fun offense. Geno could execute it. Would it maybe open the door to Penix? Maybe, but Geno could execute it. And there's a lot of quarterbacks. Bo Nix could execute it. So this is an offense that would not be one that you would think a typical defensive coach would be leaning into. And one of the clips will address this of, I'm just going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball. That's what we're going to do. We're going to protect my defense. We're going to play good defense, circle of toughness, run the ball, circle of toughness, play good defense. As I said, he doesn't seem to be limited in his approach and scope anywhere on this. And this would be my next point to this, is that there just seems to be, much like there was with Ben Johnson, a unique understanding of the fact that the modern age of football is not about my playbook. It's not, I've got my stuff. I got my things I do. It is the, musician who has to keep learning and keep understanding. And well, I know all the notes, so I know what I need to know now. No, what learn about now some of these other different techniques. Grow beyond that. And when it comes to both sides of the ball, he was sort of intimating a little bit about that being his approach. That you got to keep growing here. You got to keep looking for where you can find those little advantages. I mean, he spoke in so many ways, and it warmed my heart. And speaking in so many ways that was right to what my outlook has been and my hope has been. Which it's kind of eerie at times in hearing some of the words he used, the manner they talk. Wow, this is just right down the pathway of what I've been sort of preaching and hoping for us in our approach to go in that direction of it. So we'll get to some of these clips here, but he understands that this is going to be a process, but he's not coming in with any preset notions about how he's got to do this, about how fast this is going to be. So he's not come in here and said to John, let's tear it all down to the ground. Or, hey, put the pedal down and let's go to the metal. He's obviously just learning this team still, just coming back into the building and figuring out what's what, who's who, and learning names, learning staff. And rather than coming in with a predisposed position on those two, let's let the situation play out to what I see. I think he also acknowledges that there's some really good talent on this team as well. But let's go through a couple of these clips. Megan, it's great to see you in the house. Feed me. How you doing? Hope everybody's well. Thank you for your guys' membership and support here on the channel, patronage on the channel. I know I keep promising to do more of these, and I will keep amping these up as we go along. But thank you so much for all you guys do and your support here on the channel. Even if you're watching this in replay, it's very, very much appreciated. You guys are what helps keep the lights on, so to speak. So thank you so much. Don Mata, how you doing? It's good to see you. Ski Nation, what is up? Hello, hello, hello. My peeps, William Leonard. Hello. Let's get this going. Let's light this candle, shall we? Take a couple of clips here and just want to discuss them with you guys if we can, just a little bit on this. So let's start out here with a little bit of maybe what was the draw to Seattle here versus going to Washington and heading to the Commanders. If I can get my thing right here. If I can do it, am I right? Find my thing.
From afar, we're East Coast folks, but we've grown up on the East Coast, but we do have family out here in the area, and we've seen this organization operate from afar, and I've had nothing but respect for the ownership, especially John, how they've operated, Coach Carroll, the ability to compete for championships at a consistent pace, and how they play, and the spirit of the players. Has been something that I respect a lot, and going through the process and me.
This is obviously a reference into the culture that's been built here, and not just the culture of what Carroll's done, but as much as where you've got from Paul Allen understanding top down and facilities and staff and training staff and first class organization for the players all the way down the line, and being pro player friendly. And some of that is coming from Carroll too. I don't want to not give him some credit on that. He certainly had his share of credit on that, but it's that it's still here and present, and it's understood throughout the league that this is part of what you do get coming to Seattle as a potential head coach. And I think that when we talk about the difference between us and Washington, did it come down to money? Did it come down to maybe something like as small as, hey, everything's a little bit more organizationally on point over here than this? They're trying to get to where that organization is at as far as from a steadiness standpoint. Just a little thing, but it stood out to me as maybe a minor thing that could have pushed you by a nose over the finish line. A little bit of here on talking about doing it the right way, which I thought was interesting. Sorry, if I can find it. Live show, folks. I was putting this together here this morning, so let's do this like this. Oh, kitty. What is going on? Okay. There we go.
It is a leap of faith, but this is a special city, and this is a great football city, man. And we got the best fans in the world, and I understand where this organization wants to go, and I feel like we're aligned on how we want to get there. and I'm just juiced to go do it. And there's going to be no secret thing of, you know, scheme or secret plays that are going to get us there faster. It's going to take a lot of hard work by finding the right people and doing it the right way, treating people the right way, building everybody up throughout the building. I want everybody to feel like they're a part of this mission. And it's going to take all we got one day at a time. And it's that simple.
You feel the emotion running through him there. I always like the mix of passion and intensity, something that I can certainly relate to at times in my approach. So it's, I just, you know, this is what you want when I talk about a guy speaking with clarity of mind and spirit and knows what he's seeking to accomplish, understands how he wants to get there, has a purposeful approach in his manner. These are the things that are small, tiny, little itty bitty things that I'm not asking for people to read too much into, but nonetheless, I think are very important things that are minor necessities within being a coach that you wouldn't necessarily you wouldn't necessarily think is how that would be. Ski Nation, you chomping at the bit, brother? Yeah, hit me up, man. We can. I was going to go through a couple of these clips and then kind of bounce over to you guys in the chat, but okay. Give me a second here. It's good to see you, though, man. Long time no see. Mm-hmm. All right, I got a little bit of stuff scrambling today a little bit. I agree with you on the offensive minded coaches, and BJ would have been cool. However, we haven't really seen the defensive version. Yeah. Defensive McDonald could be right. Assuming he works out, he could potentially be great. Defensive minds that balance the game out like Anakin without being able. Yeah, I was positing a little bit last night. We were doing the stream that, you know, perhaps with this that you have a guy that you know, will be one of those forerunners on the defensive side of the ball. So you know, I'll definitely. I think some of these, and I'm seeing a lot of questions peppered in here on this, guys. Let's go through just these videos, because then I think a lot of these videos will answer the questions you guys are going to have in regards to this or my thought process. Because I was going to kind of just, you know, bounce off the videos as we're doing it, and we'll still do just like we do with the live stream show. I'll do these and then bounce over to you guys in the comments. But I know that there's a lot of questions that are going to be wanting to be asked, so I'm with you guys, and we'll still be doing that part. Just let's roll through these quick. And then we'll bounce over to you guys on that side and kind of go through the ups and downs on those thoughts. But yes, to in short order, Ski Nation, your thought process along where you're at is what I would believe or hope that this would be. It's certainly what they're seeking to do, and there's certainly room right now for the defensive side of the ball to move forward now at this point. And yeah, just I want to pop through these really quick, man. Sorry, I know we'll do some straight. I know it's been a while, so he's probably got a couple questions, but let me just go through these really quick here. So here's a little bit on him speaking about the evolution of his defense. This is going to be right in regards to something I think that you're just asking about right here, Ski.
I think what that did is it streamlined a lot of the things that we were trying to do at the pro level, and so it's just a constant evolution of kind of the basics, the fundamentals that Rex Ryan and Jim Johnson have done, 20, 25 years ago, and then all the great coordinators that we've had in Baltimore that we've been able to evolve the scheme. And ultimately, you know, the coaches that we had last year, we decided, you know, we took it a certain direction given the players we had. So I'd say it's adaptable.
So this is where, to your point, what it would take, Ski Nation, here for you to have a defensive-minded coach who can start to be one of the forebearers of, like, let's say we've got a race, and this NFL has always been a race between the defense and the offense, right? Maybe the defense, like we go back to Ski to 1945, and the defense starting out, there's no passing attacks, it's wing T, it's a lot of running the ball. Oh, the defense is way out here. And slowly for a 20-year period, the offense is trying to work its way up and gain ground, but really defense is still kind of carrying things. Then you get your offensive explosion in the 70s with the passing attack starting to kick in with Eric Coryell. Now they're starting to really make up some ground. You get to the 80s. I still think that the defense is still a little bit ahead of the offense at that point. But again, let's consider with this that we go through these points of offensive evolutions and differences in football. A big part of the first, in my opinion, 30, 40 years of football was the defense ahead of the offense. And then what you have then happen is by the 90s, we start to have the offenses just about catch up to the defense, even Steven, and then they start to pull ahead. And so then, and from that point, it's been almost a kind of constantly feeling of pulling ahead a bit of the defense, where it's not like it went like this. It's just like every 10 years, you're just feeling this pull back from the defense. And the past 10 years, especially with some of the iterations of what the offenses are doing. And now, maybe there's a room for this defense to come back into this, right? For the slide to come back, that it's always this kind of ebb and flow, situation with this ski where that there is that room to do it. But to do it, you've got to have that evolution part where you're pushing it forward. You can't be married to here's my playbook, or here's, like we just did kind of the last couple of years, here's 2 playbooks, and then let's mix them together. You can't do it that way. You've got to be looking for all these little things that you can still then add in and put together with your defense. Talking about streamlining the process. He has a lot of complication within this defense, but also simplified down. He's found that way to marry those 2 concepts together, which again, to me, if I'm thinking about this just conceptually, Ski, I think about it like, you have to do this as a defense, to operate with this frame of mind. You've got to be so on it with all of these small little details defensively. You can't leave any of this little stuff out. Just, you've got to be bump, 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 bump. Check it all off, underline it. That's where we're going with it. And he's got all those boxes checked, in my opinion, from an evolution standpoint to the understanding of taking complicated to the simplification. And you're right. Yeah, you absolutely could be looking at a guy now who is able to be that next guy up to push this ball so far forward. And because no other defensive guys are doing it right now, right? Or there isn't as many guys doing it in the way he's doing it. You still have so much of the league that's married to the 4-3 defense that's got some shades of Carroll's old vestiges. And then you've got a lot of the defense, which is swept around the league with the Vic Fangio cover 2 shell, which there's a lot of that in this, but this is just way more different than that. It's not, all those guys are trying to run pure Fangio, and he's like, there's some Fangio in this. There's some of that in this. There's some of that in this, So he is that guy, could be that guy here. And it's why I like this hire at the end of the day, is that though the offensive minded way is the easier way to go on this, taking this approach, looking at this guy and saying, yeah, but is there room here? If I look to not where the game is right now, and the game is right now where it is, offense to defense. But if I not, instead of looking right now where it is, what if I look to where I think it might go in 3 years from now? What if I take a look at some recent trends this year? For instance, we saw scoring down just a little bit. What if maybe defense is finding a little bit more flavor? And again, that I come back to Ski, that back and forth, just that defense out here, offense comes in, offense ends out. Like, it does feel like it'll be an ebb and flow on this. But no worries, man. I know you've been a while in here, so I understand totally. I was just popping through on these. But great opening comments on him with that. A little bit of here, I think he gives you a bit of an insight into where he feels like the team is at, because I do believe here, I should delete a lot of this stuff off here so I wasn't dealing with so much stuff here, but I got lost in the sauce on this one. Great players. All right. Talk a little bit about the players on the team here. Kind of interesting one here.
I think what that did is it streamlined a lot of the things that we were trying to do at the pro level. And so it's just a constant evolution of kind of the basics, the fundamentals that Rex Ryan and Jim Johnson have done 20, 25 years ago. And then all the great coordinators that we've had in Baltimore that we've been able to evolve the scheme. And ultimately, the coaches that we had last year.
We got a great opportunity to build a competitive team sooner than later. I think that, and talking about the players like this team, he could be just saying that. Any coach could be just kind of saying that to make the players here feel a little bit better. But certainly an early indication here that maybe this team might be willing to push a little bit faster and farther on trying to be a competitor early on here under the Mike McDonald regime. That This goes in tandem a little bit with, of course, Schneider saying that he felt the team underachieved last year, where there's a belief maybe in this building that, hey, we can be 3 games better than we were last year. We can push to be, if not in a contending state, right neck and neck with them, with some of the big dog teams in the NFC. And there's a lot of big dog teams in the NFC. Let's face it, it's a pretty wide open affair at the moment. Go to here to the impact. This was a little bit John Schneider one, I believe, and this is the impact a little bit of the Ravens game on Schneider and the team. Just kind of an interesting one. Listen to him talk about this.
Yeah, I think talking is. I mean, there's a feeling that we all were there and felt it, right? But in talking to the players, several of the offensive players were like, "What was that? What just happened?" Right? And I try to pick the players' brains, here and there throughout the season, and that totally stood out. And I forget, which player it was, but they said, like, "Who was that? What was that? Who was that?" They don't.
That's again, this is part of why I like the press conference so much. Is you guys, as being members of the channel, you watched me for the last year since that Ravens game, say that one hit a little different this year. I mean, that was the one where you guys saw me go starkly from we could be maybe a contender this year to I don't think there's a shot. And that was even after the Leonard Williams trade, because that team just utterly took you apart, and it was not pretty. It was really kind of an out to the shed kind of moment, and you got a whooping. And I think it's cool from my perspective to hear John saw it the same way, that there was a little bit of something different to that, and that part of what would catch your eye initially on a guy like McDonald with this going, wow, they're doing some pretty crazy stuff over there. They're doing some interesting stuff over there, and it seemed to have very much have done that. Next up here, we've got a little bit about the identity of his defense and talking about that.
Yeah, I think talking is. I mean, there's a feeling that we all were there and felt it, right? But in talking to the players, several of the offensive players were like, "What was that? What just happened?" Right? And I talked to.
Oops, I picked the wrong one. Sorry. Hold on. Live stream show here, folks. Sorry. What is going on? I got too many clips here. Too many things going on. Impact. Where are we at? Boy, oh boy, I can't find it. When the cat's crying in your ear and you're trying to find something, it is one of the hardest things in the world to. Okay, cat, I got you. All right. Identity of the defense. Here we go.
Your Ravens guys described your philosophy as flexible and adaptable. When did that become the most important thing to you, and why is that the identity of your defense?
Well, the offense is out there too good just to run 3 things and just say, "Hey, we're going to beat you." So I as a philosophically, again, I think we're all in this thing together, and the players need to know that we're trying to put them in advantageous positions. So we're constantly trying to give them little margins of advantages. And if you're not doing that, then what are you doing as a coach? Whether it's through technique or fundamentals or communication or scheme. So the system that we run is built on concepts that are adjustable, and we can layer it together. And we're not going to get there overnight. It's going to be a process. But we understand what that takes, and the cadence will vary.
I'm going to replay just the start of this clip when he's talking about you can't just go out there and run your 3 plays and expect to get it done. Now, you guys were watching Mike McDonald's face. What I want you to do now when I play this clip is I want you to pay attention, very close attention to John Schneider's face when he's talking about it's your job to get the players advantages. When he's talking about just key in if you can. It's a small thing. I won't go through the whole clip again, but just about the first 25, 30 seconds of the clip. Just take note, because John looks off camera slightly, and he's fighting back a smile. So just watch that if you could for me. Did that not play? I thought that played. Maybe you guys didn't hear that. But anyway, John was kind of looking off camera when he was mentioning that there. So sorry, I'm trying to get the videos. I got a cat in my face. Come on, kitty. Please, kitty. Please just lay down for the love of God today. Please. It's definitely one of those days today. You know what I mean? It's a little one of those days. All right, inspiration. Here we go.
Yeah, this is an interesting answer from if John Harbaugh is listening, but it's something that we built in Baltimore with the coaches that we have, and you're going to draw inspiration from things that you think is from schemes and people that you feel like are doing some cool stuff out there and have answers for things. And I think going to college and being able to reach out to a lot of different programs, and there's a lot of different programs throughout the country that I really respect, and coaches that were really helpful, translating the game to college.
John talked a lot about his connections out there and things, just where he pulls from, and he's been under Wink Martindale. He's had influences throughout the college level. Schneider mentioned a lot of the connections that he was astounded that the guy had at his age, because John wouldn't have expected it. He would have thought more of there being just a kind of a hallway of guys you've been in connection with, but instead it's more of he knows a lot of different things. He's open to a lot of different ideas. And he didn't play the last one. Sorry about that on that. Again, the cat decided to scream in my ear there as I was trying to get the clip to play. So rewatch John Schneider's face here, first 30 seconds of this clip, and then just take note when he talks about when Mike McDonald's talking about the coach's job and what he's trying to do.
Your Ravens guys described your philosophy as flexible and adaptable. When did that become the most important thing to you, and why is that the identity of your defense?
Well, the offense is out there too good just to run three things and just say, "All right, hey, we're going to beat you." So I philosophically, again, I think we're all in this thing together, and the players need to know that we're trying to put them in advantageous positions. So we're constantly trying to give them little margins of advantages. And if you're not doing that, then what are you doing as a coach? Whether it's through technique or fundamentals or communication or scheme. So the system that we run is built on concepts that are adjustable, and we can layer it together. And we're not going to get there overnight. It's going to be a process.
So there's a couple moments there where John looks off camera in those instances, and I know I'm probably reading too much into it. I don't think it's taking necessarily a shot at Carroll. I do think it's just Schneider's registering in that moment a little bit of was exactly at the forefront of why we had to bring this kind of guy in to do this. I think that's what's occurring in John's mind. I don't think it's again, not back at any point at this point to banging on Coach Carroll. It's just more about this is the thing the team needs right now. This is the thing the team really requires for this thing to be in the right place and to go in the right way. And I don't think that it's definitely. I don't think Pomeroy's going to take the first press conference to be swinging at Carroll. In fact, he called him a Hall of Famer and was really respectful of him. It's just and again, it doesn't matter anymore. Carroll's not here anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. It's about that this is the thing that your team needed so much, and that if you now have a head coach that puts that into this team and can now bring that to the foray, then bam, your team's going to be so much more improved. And those little advantages that he's talking about across the board, when I speak about this throughout this year, when I've harped about the job of a coach and what he's there to do, and when people are sitting there telling me, no, it's only about the players. The onus is strictly upon them, sink or swim. And I say, no, it's that the coaches have to come in and do, a little bit of their part as well. And that's the part that, just stands out to me with him a little bit today was just, bam, you're getting that done. Thank you. This is what I'm talking about. Let's go. And so his words, from God's lips to my ears is how I kind of feel about that with McDonald and speaking about that way. And you can't just come out there at the forefront and run your 3 set plays and say that's going to be it. That's going to be good. That's going to be fine. The game requires more now. You've got to do more. And McDonald is a guy that just gets that with just absolute faith and certainty, I think, in the way that will not make him stagnant or remain in the same place he is now for the next 20, 30 years, but allow him to continue to try to grow and try to be, as his players have called him, versatile, adaptable, willing to move into different spots. All right, let's go to for when we did inspiration there. Let's go to the offensive philosophy. This is a question I know that's going to be on the forefront of a lot of people with this right now, is what he's looking to do here.
So it made sense at that point.
Mike, you're known for your defense. Obviously, it's been phenomenal your last 3 years as a coordinator. But I think a lot of people are curious about your offensive philosophies. You played for two guys that like to run the ball a lot. Is it fair to say that that's kind of your offensive philosophy as well, or do you feel kind of differently about that from John and Jim?
Yeah, the percentage of when you run the ball and how much and all that, like that's all adjustable. To me, it's going to mirror our football team. Like, we're going to be a physical football team. We're going to have answers. We're going to try to be explosive and really do it and build it around the players that we have. We're going through the process right now of who's going to be, helping design that and ultimately calling plays. So to have a specific answer for you, what it's going to look like, I can't do that now, but that'll come into focus here sooner than later.
Now you pair this with the Ben Grubb reports we're hearing of the former University of Husky offensive coordinator and his spread-based concepts, air raid concepts a little bit. And boy, you go, yeah, he's sort of telling you right there, I'm not necessarily just looking for the hammer, hitting the run game. We're going to be tough. We're going to be physical, but we might be able to accomplish that as well with different styles of offense. And the run pass rate, not really he doesn't have any sort of, sacred cows in his philosophy of how we have to, it's got to be around 50-50. That would be a thing you'd think from a defensive-minded head coach would be, they'd go, it's got to be split. I need to protect my defense with this, with the rumors a little bit with Grubb. Even just the consideration of Grubb shows you that the team is, looking in this respect to maximize both sides of the ball. And right now you have more talent on your offensive side of the ball. So seeking to maximize it is not only what's best for the team in the, short term, probably long term as well, but to also get the most out of your talent, to also potentially get you the best team moving into next year and the year after. So I thought that this was a great quote on his part, and I tandem that up with the Grubb rumors we're hearing now. I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. Here's just a little bit more in regards to that. This is in regards to who's going to be his play caller.
It's not near the top of the list. We're looking for the right person to come in here and build this thing. So we want someone that's open-minded, that has a growth mindset, that can connect with their players, and build a system, that's unique to the Seattle Seahawks. That's going to live here for a long time, and he's going to be the one spearheading it.
So they were asking him about whether or not it had to be an NFL offensive coordinator that he was going to bring here, and somebody from the NFL level. He said, not necessarily. And then again, we come back to the Ben Grubb rumors, and he is a little bit understanding. It's kind of having that influence of college when he went to Michigan. And I think that kind of flavored him a little bit in a certain way when he returned to the pro game, not just in how he was simplifying some things at times at the pro level within the complexity, but also I think a little bit within his understanding of offensively where the game is going. Don't be where the game's been, be where the game is going on both sides of the ball. And he mentions again, looking for growth in the offense. He's looking for the equivalent of what he's going to do on the defensive side of the ball. Again, this is a departure from a little bit of the old school mentality of what you think a defensive coach would want, which would simply be those, I want an offensive line that's going to push people off the ball. We're going to hammer the run game. He comes from Baltimore. You think that's something that he would try to maybe establish as a forefront thing, that's what he's come from. That's all I know. But instead, no, he's showing you some other indications, which gets me really excited here. I'd be excited for the hire if he was just simply going to try to lean in and do a little bit more of running the ball. And I wouldn't necessarily love it, but I'd understand it. But the fact that he is going in this other direction seemingly and being willing, especially with the talent that you have on this team right now, the wide receivers, the quarterback that's in play, the way if you can get the offensive line going and the running backs, you can have a really, really explosive offense here. So I was very encouraged to hear this part of it as he went through. And it doesn't seem like, again, he's got any in-the-box thinking. He seems to be forward in his approach to let's consider all ideas, whether it comes to how I have to adjust my defense, who to hire as an offensive coordinator, my approach and outlook on this team. Let's take this all in. Everything's possible and everything's on the table right now. And let's kind of refine this from here to make the right decision. Much like this coaching search, I think this can lead to success as an outlook. Here's a little bit of the thing that Mac was looking for.
Well, like I said, there were opportunities to talk with teams before, and understanding there possibly was interest but given the time frame and when that opportunity would come. But our mentality going in was just let's go in with an open mind, and if there's a great opportunity with a great partnership that feels like it's the right thing, then that'd be something you're willing to pursue. And then we had some great conversations throughout the process, but like I said, when we started talking about vision and how we wanted to play and the direction that I felt like how I'd like to take the team and how that paralleled what they saw, it just became very clear that that was the thing that you're looking for. So.
Make no mistake about it, Washington badly wanted this man. They're settling on Dan Quinn today, but that was not their first look at hire. They wanted McDonald. I think there would have been other teams that would have been interested in McDonald if they had been willing to wait till after the playoffs. I think a lot of them probably thought with him that the Ravens were going to go all the way to the Super Bowl. And so you weren't going to have that time to really get him into the building. And so, we'll just get with it. We'll go with the next best candidate. And there was a little bit of his picking. He had 6 different interviews lined up. He got the opportunity here to, I think, as much as anything in this situation, rather than, you picking the guy kind of got to pick you a little bit too. And that this is both parties saying, hey, yeah, I want to be here. I like this. I want you here. I like this. This is the interesting one that I had not expected. Final little clip here, and then we'll dive fully into the chat. Is a question about whether he will call the plays or not, which I like.
You obviously been calling plays for Baltimore and Michigan the last 3 years. Is that something that you still plan on doing now that you're head coach?
Yeah, right now the plan is I'll be calling the plays. Now, depending on who the defensive coordinator is and when that becomes that. Ultimately, I'm the head coach of the football team, so I want to coach the football team. And right now, the best way that we can win is, in my opinion, is for me to call the plays. And then when it becomes obvious that someone else is ready to go and we see it the same way, then we'll make that change.
So I have not had recent defensive coordinators come out that, looking in recent NFL history, there's a couple of guys that have done it as head coaches and calling the plays. It is unusual to see that, and that's him taking on a little bit. But we've seen it on the offensive side of the ball for many, many years, head coaches doing it. We've seen many coaches successful when asked to do that as their job. So, as a secondary job. So doesn't scare me off. I think the thing he also says at the end is, I'm going to get a guy until I can find a guy I can trust and develop in that role. Where he has a defensive coordinator, and over time they'll both get on that same, synchronistic page, and then he'll know what I want to call in this given moment. If you see this given look or how this goes, we'll work it out through the week. But initially, he's going to be the guy, calling the plays and seeing what's what and turning it over a little bit. So kind of interesting there. Those are just kind of the opening clips here. Let me get over to you guys here in the chat. I know folks are wanting to chop it up with a couple of these other finer tuned details, but I am definitely happy and encouraged so far about what we're hearing from the guy, from the Grubb as a potential hire. Everything's sounding pretty good at this moment from my perspective of things. Let's see where you guys are at. Ski Nation, I hope you're back in here, man. Beamy says, I can't believe Ravens fans wanted Mike over Harbaugh. There's a few out there that do. I'm setting up a show. I'm going to be talking with Coach Evans about this, the Sip 2 Tally Films. He does Ravens. I did the Behind Enemy Lines with him this past year. And I'm hoping he's going to be able to give me some insights a little bit about, what we're going to get here from this guy. But it does seem like, and I think that just is if that's not a ringing endorsement, of a coordinator you're hiring for a coach, where a fandom's like, no, we should just kick out what has been the best coach in our franchise's history so that we can keep the OC. Kind of says something, especially after the year that they did have, which was pretty successful. King Bomber says, yeah, definitely probably point of emphasis in the interview stage. I think so. I think that this is definitely one of the big draws that they have to him is your approach is not just this, you have a book and the book never adds any more pages. Or if you add a page where the rest of the league's adding pages every year, you're adding a paragraph. And I think that's a little bit, when I see that look off the camera a little bit like Schneider's doing there, I think he's looking to maybe Jody, maybe just one of the people in his front office that they've had probably many of these discussions over the years about this given thing. And it's where I think Carroll got a little hard-headed in his approach not to change in this way. I think he knew he needed to. I just don't think he ever made the final leap to do so. I think he kind of was trusting in that cylindrical cycle thing where it will come back around to where his defense now starts to work again. He had to take a call. No worries, brother. Yeah, I'm okay, King Bomb, with letting him call plays too. I thought it was unusual and I was predicting it wouldn't happen, but that was just simply because there's not a lot of baseline of these defensive head coaches actually calling plays. But I got no problem with it. If the offensive guys can do it, why can't the defensive guys? Play hand grenade. What was the Bleacher Report? Kingsbury going to the Raiders. Thank God we avoided that one. People were bringing up Kingsbury yesterday. I can't do Kingsbury. I feel like Kingsbury has failed upwards. Maybe he hasn't completely failed, but he's not been successful. You know? Bomber might have been kind of confident that I had the direction want to go in, but a wider approach rather than get stuck on one idea, one focus. I think you got the top of this King Bomber. Him and Spoon are going to be a nightmare matchup. You could tell he's loving Spoon. He brought up Spoon in the press conference. That was one of the names he dropped. That I know he's just that. It sounded like their coaching staff fell in love with Spoon as well. So many did across the league, I think. And a lot of promise in this opening interview, King Bomber. Steady as she goes, confident, well-spoken, intense. You have that intensity, I'm telling you. You get to these players, you can't just be you can't look like Ben McAdoo. You got to have a little bit of that laser, predatorial kind of look to your eye a bit, I think. Not full on like you're a hard, but just a little bit like, he might take a man's life. You know what I mean? Well, he's only 8 years older than me. Well, Jesus, I'm imagine almost being 10 years older than him. Don says he seems very mature, well over his age. He does, Don. He does. Might have been what Ben Johnson had in mind, maybe more of a fixed approach like Carroll, and Seattle didn't like that. I think to your point, King Bomber, everyone at first thought and were making the guesses that Ben Johnson wasn't going to get paid enough. That was his reasoning for not coming here. I've kind of wondered and maintained on this, is it may be more likely that instead of not wanting to come here, or that maybe he just didn't interview particularly well, because I'm hearing rumors of that too. And that's to your point on this with, might have been what got Johnson wrong. When Johnson came in with a little bit of a fixed mind, maybe. I think with Johnson, he just probably, it's possible. I think my gut on the King is that Johnson came in and didn't interview as well, then probably asked for a crap ton of money. Because I will say with King Bomber and doing the research on Ben Johnson, he was a guy that was looking to always update and change his scheme too, and add stuff to his scheme all over the place. So he was not a guy necessarily rigid, but maybe rigid in the overall, to your point, the overall philosophy where it was, offense will drive the day, defense will just try to kind of hold on for dear life. Everything's about the O. That's taking it kind of extreme, King, but kind of like down that road a little bit. And yeah, King Bomber, McDermott does call the plays for Buffalo last year. I think the guys that I've heard so far that have done it in recent history is you had McDermott, you got Rex Ryan did it. I think Belichick might have done it for a year when they were going between DCs. Well, hand grenade B, you think Mike's going to let the offense do his thing and not meddle? I do. Because this is the place where you would see him meddle if he was a meddler. And what I mean by that is that the offensive coordinator hire would be an Arthur Smith type. Like the Steelers are hiring Arthur Smith, and you can see exactly what they're doing there. We know we're not going to go find a top-notch quarterback because we're not drafting high enough and we don't have the money to spend. So what we're going to do is we're going to lean into our two running backs in our running game. And so we'll bring in the best run game guy, and then we'll protect our defense. That right there is an approach that you can see with a lot of, like, not that Arthur Smith won't be successful there, and he might make it fully work, but just boring, typical of having a defensive-minded head coach. That's what you'd say to that. And so this doesn't seem to be that, just even with the flirtations towards Grubb as an offensive coordinator. The flirtations of being willing to bring in spread-based concepts to the pro game here. It does speak to the fact that there's a lack of meddling going on, that this is really what is the ultimate drive is exactly what he's telling us from his own mouth, to say, this isn't about my fixed philosophy, my fixed belief, my fixed defense, my fixed positions of players, and how they need to be. And this is complete kind of fluidity across the board. And that includes over to the offensive side of the ball, I think. King Bomber, I've heard rumors of Carroll planning to retire at the start of this season, and apparently he changed his mind and wanted to coach, but Seattle was too deep in the process to switch at that point. Interesting. I that is interesting. I think that that's the case. It explains a lot of the lack of success and resonance of Carroll's message with the players, that then goes beyond just simply was unable to connect with his generation. That then becomes, if you're a coach at that point where you're really thinking that deeply about it, it's what I always say: if you've got 1 foot halfway out the door, you're already gone. In a pro sports standpoint, coaching, player, if you're thinking about it, then you're just as soon as to do it. Because that's you telling yourself, I'm not all in as much as I used to be. I'm not quite there. I've lost a bit of my edge. And if you lose even a part of your edge at a pro level sport, coach or player, that's all she wrote. Interesting, though. Megan heard it too. Oh, wow. It explains it. It explains it. King says it might have been why he was the high defensive hire. His approach to offense is different than other defensive guys. Very well could have. It would have blown me away in the interview if I'm Schneider. We're going through all and it sounds like they didn't really get into the defensive in the interviews, the defensive stuff of what he's looking to do. It was more big picture stuff. But I'm sure when they went around and talked about the offense, and he said, yeah, I'd like to push the ball just as hard on the offensive side of the ball as the defensive side of the ball. Why leave that unattended? Why leave that as just a protective for the defense? Why leave that as an umbrella for simply the defense? Let's take it as an equal partner in this process and utilize it to the utmost. Something along those lines. And if I was Schneider in the interview and he said that to me, I'd be going, oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Megan says, if you had Cliff in the building, you'd have to talk me down from Mount Kilimanjaro, boys. I think you might have to do the same. We might be both on that Kilimanjaro mountain at that point, because it happens in the league. Some guys just always keep going up and up and up and up and up and up, and no matter what they're doing. And it's like, even when they hit a bump in the road where they suck kind of miserably, it's still like, well, they'll get through it. Maybe I don't know. He may not have a punchable face either, but he does have a slappable face. Amy says, I like how he can control the room. He has that ability to actually care about what he is saying. He is. He's locked in and engaged in that way. And I can see why players hear what he's saying. He's straightforward, direct to the point. A little bit of that intensity I was talking about at the top that's so important. It all kind of comes together there. King says, I saw a lot of Commander fans pissed at how people thought our situation is better than theirs. We have an above-average quarterback, whether you like Gino or not. Agreed, and lots of defensive weapons, something Commanders don't have. Yeah, I've got my long debated guy, one of those guys that I always just get in seemingly constant debates in the channel with Yui on this thing, and he's just like, yeah, Commanders was a better situation. I was like, what? By what measure? By what measure? He was trying to sell me at one point, I think, that they had a better receiving core than us. I'm like, what are you talking about? Jahan Dotson, dude. Like, no. That's a no. They got a long way to go there in Washington. Yeah. Yeah, they ain't getting Witherspoon. They can have their cap space in the 5th overall pick, but they also ground out their roster. They kicked their top 5 pick to the curve in Chase Young. They kicked another very productive edge to the curve for a mid-second round pick. Yeah. I think they'll definitely be better now rid of Schneider, but we're definitely, I think, the better place. If you just remove all things being equal, I would say. King says, I've watched a few podcasts and I've seen a variety of takes on Johnson. I initially thought that he just didn't feel like his job was completed in Detroit and he wanted to go back. Lots of different ways it could have played out. It's a guess. It's a little bit of where I was hitting last night at the end of the stream, where people were asking me kind of those questions on a King, where I'm just going, man, I don't have any information. I don't know. I could take the blind shot in the dark guess, but it's literally me closing my eyes going, flipping a coin. When it comes to Ben Johnson, like you say, it could have been he just asked for too much money and he blew him all away in the interview. He sucked in the interview and then asked for too much money. He sucked in the interview and didn't ask for too much money. He thought he had to go back and just, like you say, complete unfinished work. I think if you buy that, I got a bridge for you in Iraq to sell you. That's to me that one doesn't add up. I think could be either of those two, but coaches don't typically turn down head coaching jobs in this league if there's a chance that they can go get one. And so I don't know. It is possible that maybe it's just that does come into play, but boy, it seems just especially with the rumors we heard about with him, King, already before coming into this week. Like, we'd already heard coming into this that, like, last year he would have had a head coaching job, but he was wanting like $14 million a year, and then his agent was trying to put the kibosh. No, that we weren't asking for that. No. So it's like there's a little bit of smoke on that fire to me, a little bit maybe. And if you don't give you come in to the room and you're like, I'm wanting $15 million, and I know that with you walking in the room, it's like, you better dance for me. You better shake that moneymaker and show me what you're about right now, Coach Ben, because you're asking for quite a big chunk. King says, I've heard it was the money. I've heard it was the money. I've heard it was the interview. I've heard that he didn't want to come to Seattle, Washington. I've heard Seattle wasn't interested and he didn't get the job. Yeah, it's all over the place on that one. And who knows? It's hard for me to believe it's the money. Rumors are that McDonald is the highest paid first-time head coach ever. I'm assuming Johnson would like to be that money too. If you're fighting that versus $15 million, you've got bigger problems. Yeah, I think that the money thing in itself wouldn't have been solely it. I agree with you there. I do think that it's probably the interview doesn't go well and then he wants the money. And that's a 1-2 punch of N-O. I could see how it wouldn't, if he comes in there and he's Mr. Charismatic and he's, he's got the secretaries just like, as soon as he passes by and he's in the room and he's got everybody like feeling like he's a brother and say, okay, the $15 million maybe lands. But, I don't know about in this case. I just can't remember in recent history, King Bomber, I think Mike McDonald did one year. He could have gone to the Colts, I think, and came back to New England. But when I go through the other times in my head of coordinators who had a job opportunity, maybe Quinn last year could have gotten a job, maybe. Just doesn't seem like to me that guys really do that. But maybe it's probably like we say this. All these are possible. I can't say one isn't for sure. I don't know. Yeah. Radu says, was Amir or the interview kind of vague? Well, I think in a lot of respects, Radu, he's still deciding on what he wants to do. I'm sure he's turning over different offensive coordinator hires. And I mean, he just got that job yesterday. So it's when they're asking him about your offensive approach, when they're asking him about, what kind of offense you want to run, are you, where you're at with certain, not the players, but just where your outlook is with the team. And it was kind of most of that stuff was wait and see, but I think he was being truthful about that. I think they are still trying to make that an evaluation just walking in. And I think where he could be specific, he tried to be Radu with like mentioning, for instance, that I'm going to call the plays. That's a part that I have decided on. I will be the play caller. That's a part of this that is going to be part of the defensive coordinator hire, that they know that when they come in here, I am the guy to be doing that. And so I think he was as much as he could, but you're right. It wasn't necessarily, there wasn't a ton of, exact details in there. I've got some other clips that I'm going to be pulling together, Radu, in the next week and two for some more of these shows that'll, I think, get to more of some of the specifics, especially how he rolls into defense and some of that, but we'll also get better clarity with some of the hires and whatnot. Well, hand grenade, Ben wanted to go back so that Eminem could write a diss track about him. He was worried about that Eminem diss track. Don Mata, a quiet assassin, commands the room without the rah-rah. Agreed. I got that kind of vibe off him too. Megan says, makes the most sense to me about PB. Yeah, it does. Because this was one year that stood out, Megan, of other years. I've seen him out-coached on the field. I've seen us get beat by X's and O's. That was no new thing under the sun. I've seen the team be undisciplined. That was not necessarily anything new under the sun. The players not playing hard for him, that was a very new thing. King Bombers is hard to explain, but he doesn't know the team yet. He wants to build a defense to surround and help the team, not implement the defense he ran in Baltimore. There it is. I think that Radu King Bomber put it way better than I did on that. Yeah, way better than I did. Maybe the Commanders have garbage facilities. Garbage stadium. Why work there for now after Josh Harris fixes that? Yeah, that's a part of it, man. Facilities, it all comes together in that background because that's part of what attracts players, keeps players happy, keeps them engaged in the process. I got to go to one of those cheap organizations like the Cardinals and have to keep my quarter change in my pocket so I can get myself a Coke out the machine. You know what I mean? Those little things like that can wear on players. And again, they just had like King Bomber. They had a new GM. Is that guy going to be successful or not? Is the organization that they have in place going to be? Say nothing of the players they have on the field. I think these are all questions I'd be asking about as McDonald. And if I was looking at the two, I'd go, the stability of the Seattle program and the ownership and the front office there and what they've accomplished sets me up for so much more immediate success than going to that Washington. Washington looks like it could be getting its stuff right, but it's cleaning up its backyard. It's just inherited the house from the relative who never mowed, who was a hoarder, right? Had parties out in his house, never cleaned up. And they're just like they haven't gotten into the house yet. God knows what underground torture facilities they're going to find from Dan Schneider in there. They're just on the yard right now. They're just picking up the plastic cups and the empty kegs, and it's going to be a process for them. So if I'm head coach going through that, I'm going, hey, I'll go to that house that's super clean down the block, grass trimmed like golf facilities. They got a little bird feeder out in the front. Everything's super clean. It's like, ding, pristine. And yeah, also lots of question marks on that roster, King Bomber. Not a great roster. I was telling one guy, oh no, they even got a better tight end. That's like, Logan Thomas is not, I don't think, a better tight end than Will Disley. He had like one real good year, but he ain't that. He ain't that. Megan says, just realized Mike reminds me of my brother Simon, dead on resemblance. That's hilarious. I do feel bad for the fans, though. They finally dumped Schneider and had lots of aspirations for this offseason. Unfortunately, they got the worst of the leftover head coaches. Well, yeah, they're legit not happy. I even had I saw a few videos online of Washington fans approaching Mike McDonald throughout the season, just kind of catching him Mike, you coming here, Mike? You come Washington, Mike? Coming to DC, Mike? We need you in DC, Mike. Come on now. Come on, come to DC. You don't want Baltimore. Come on, DC, Mike. They wanted him bad too. Yeah. Dan Quinn has to feel like a consolation prize. Yeah. You didn't get the trip to Bermuda, Bob, but we do have the collection of steak knives. These Quinn steak knives are not that sharp, but they'll eventually cut through it. Not well. Because I know what caused my 6-day migraine, the thought of Dan Quinn coming to the Pacific Northwest. I was worried about that one myself. I was going, oh, please no. Not that. Just go different ways, different way, different direction. Well, yeah, Renee, do you think Mike has any insider info on this year's defensive college players? Well, he coached there 2 years ago, which could only help. I don't know if it's going to help a lot. He has connections at the college level that are going to help him a lot. And that's a little bit what Schneider was talking about in the press conference and his surprise about how many connections he did have. Going back from the NFL to the college level seemed to have really opened that door up for Mike. And so that's going to definitely help him out. Definitely help him out in at least initially here and maybe even long term if those connections continue. It is very funny that Washington ended up with Dan Quinn. And King Bomber, give me Junior Colson all day long. All day, every day. Vrabel's still out there. He's better than Quinn. Yeah. I would have taken Vrabes over Quinn. King, I wonder if we're more attracted to Junior Colson. You had him rated pretty highly, right? I did, King. He is going to be one of those guys, you're going to see on my big board that I think I will end up having him higher than other guys. Edrin Cooper, Peyton Wilson. There'll be some people out there that I think might have those guys pushed a little bit higher than him, but he just looked to me like he's like your CJ Mosley type coming out, It's just like, I know what I'm getting here, I don't know if he's going to be all pro city, but I know what I'm getting. And he'll be a real damn good middle linebacker, athletic as hell, that can do anything that I ask him to do on a football field. So that raised him up in my mind a little bit from a stock standpoint. Versus Jeremiah Trotter or, Maurice Lafua out of Notre Dame, Cedric Gray. I like him, though. King Bomber, also, I've seen some debate about Zerzon Newton versus Byron Murphy on who's the better D lineman, who the better D lineman is. Might be good for us to trade down and take whoever's left. A little bit of it's a poor man's version of last year, King Bomber. So it's like the Jalen Carter, Kalijah Cansey. Wasn't much a debate, but you knew that those were your far and away your best two defensive tackles in the draft and how they're going to fall and who was going to pick one to the next. They're different types of players. If you go back, it's just the first thing that jumped out of my mind when I watched Zerzon was the first step quickness for his size is very reminiscent to me of Sam Adams. Guy that he was one of the original guys when you talk about me really starting to look at the Hawks and cover stuff deeper at the time. And we're talking in early 90s where the days of Kiefer starting to grow and you really getting the magazines with the prospects and looking into them coming out. Where Sam was that guy that was really known for that and showed it at the NFL level, where guys that big just shouldn't have that ability to get off the line of scrimmage that fast. Murphy's got the twitch too as well. Murphy does his whole thing, King Bomber, is he does the pitter pat. He's trying to stutter step you. If you watch every Byron Murphy snap, here's what he's doing, King. it's not I'm coming at you or I'm gonna attack a gap and rip out with the shoulder like Zerzan is. It's like he's, you know, and so people really, I get why people really fall in love with him, because it looks pretty, and it takes athleticism for a guy like that to kind of move lateral like that with that kind of bounce and hop to him. It's a little bit like, it's like watching a King Barry Sanders guy from a defensive tackle position, almost a little bit. You know, he's just trying to essentially cross him up a bit. But I don't know if he's got as much of the pure power. And you know, I like Murphy. I got him as a second round guy though. I'm not sure who's better. I know Brandon had Zerzan rated higher, but I've seen many scouts with Murphy significantly higher, so who knows? Yeah, he's really grown on people, King, and he's my number 2 defensive tackle. So we're talking 1-2 rating. And on Zerzan, I will say, King, I have cooled in that he's not on my board now not on my board as one of the blue chip prospect guys. So let's show you guys my big board. I want to show you guys you guys want to see my big board? You want to see my bicycle? You guys want to see my bicycle? Let me show you my bicycle. I want to show it to you. Hold on here. Oh, there we go. So this is the current big board for yours truly. Bring this down to a workable size. Bring this down to a workable size. So here's the defensive guys right now. You guys don't need to see 6th or 7th rounders. We'll stay 5th rounded on here. We're still working on that crew anyway. But I don't have any blue chip guys right now, King Bomber, on the defensive side of the ball. First round guys, there's a couple of them in there for sure. I need to bump up Byron Murphy over to Vondre Sweat. So I haven't upped that yet. In fact, let's do that right now. Let's update this sucker right now. So I like him. Just they're 2 different players, and they're very close in my evaluation at the end of the day. So picking between one or the other, it's kind of like, yeah. Here's the offense, by the way. I've been going hard through the receivers. Those are the ones everybody asks about. So you can see on this side of the ball. Lower this down even a little bit more, huh? On this side of the ball, I do have a lot of blue chippers. I think the offense is a little stronger this year at the top end. I think the defense is a little deeper in this draft. But Caleb Williams, Drake May, I might move Jaden Daniels up too. I'm starting to think I'm going to need I've been meaning to do that as well. So, boom, he just became a blue chip. Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Romo, Adunzie, Brock, Bowers, Olu, and Alt as your left tackles in this draft, no doubt about it with those guys. Cooper Bebe, I don't care if I'm rising up higher than others. I know what I'm getting with that guy. He's not going to test tremendously well, so expect him to probably end up sitting around in that mid-second round pick vibe place, but I like my evaluation of him. I might end up bumping Cedric Van Pran to second round. I've been torn on that one. Jackson Powers is raising up and probably having one of the best weeks of the Senior Bowl, which I've got to start to take a little bit more into account in my evaluation of him. So this board is going to be pretty fluid from my standpoint of things, but yeah, that's it. Oh, I thought I had updated this on one other thing too. So I've got Fuwanga now going up over the top of Latham. I just like him a little bit more. He's awesome. That's my big board right now. Probably going to be a much easier decision post-combine. That helps you. You know, that's why that process is all part of helping you through it, right? You know, you got your initial look, and then that refines you down. It doesn't tell you the thing that people will say, Game Bombers, they'll overstate it and say, well, the combine rolled your grade all the way over through. You're not going to see these guys drop, in my opinion, off unless it's just a horrific combine. A couple bad scores is going to drop you 4 rounds down a board. It might drop you a round, you might, but it's there to kind of just lock in that final kind of spot where things need to be. Playing a hand grenade, I saw something on the commies wanting to give us a second for Pete. I think we would have just let Pete go if he wanted to go. I don't think that doesn't add up as a rumor. I think Pete wanted to still coach too. I think he would have. I don't know if he wanted to go out east, but well, hand grenade. It was funny. Everyone was watching the plane that Mike was on in a few days ago, like it was the Santa tracker. Santa, I know him. You know him. Radu says we're going to have a complete different defensive roster, and I'm here for it. Already a lot of investments in the defense, so there will probably be cuts 100% to bring in McDonald's ideal players. Let's go. Definitely probably will be a couple of those. There'll be some moving around. No doubt about that to get the right guys in. Yeah, the safeties will be the first place, Bomber. They go. Megan says, was on a Raven stream yesterday, was conflicted, but surprised to see how happy for the most part the flock was for us getting Mike. Oh, that's cool. I think there's a respect level between the two franchises, if I can say. We don't have any real deep rivalry between them being out in the AFC, and real recognizes real. Schneider talked about in the presser today about how they have like this running joke when Newsom was there and when the new guy was there, of like, those guys always snake our players and we always snake their players, or it's just smart operations seeing it similar, smart guys are going to see it similarly. And so I thought that was a kind of a cool little moment in today's presser. Grug would be very dope, William. I'd love it. King says, I also think we have one of the best offensive situations in the league for teams looking for an offensive coordinator. Engstred has received 3 interview requests, us, the Bucks, and the Patriots. Interesting. Okay. I'm with it. Radu said, I would have loved having Waldron back, see what he can do for one more year. He's already familiar with our players. I wouldn't have been opposed to it, Radu. I wouldn't have been opposed to it. I don't know much about Engstred. I got to look him up a bit. Well, hand grenade, we did request an interview with the Lions dude, Tanner Engstred. Yeah. Who's got the Lions background? I don't know too much about him individually. That's a mouthful of a name, I tell you that. Kimbar also talking about bad defensive contracts. Out of the 7 big cut candidates, only Draymond and Adams have more than 1-year deals at the moment. That's right. There's a lot of, I call it cap flexibility. We don't have a lot of cap space, but we got a lot of cap flexibility if we want to do kind of whatever we want to do. And you can hit that reset. It's possible they take that approach. I think they're still definitely ascertaining what they want to do. And I think King Bomber, we could land Colson in the second round for sure. I think this is where, at the heart of my draft strategy, if I'm John Schneider and I'm trying to set up like a general in the battlefield, the right cavalry in place and artillery here and this here, right? I'm looking at it and I'm going, I'm sitting at 16. I got 3 picks. Excuse me. I got 3 picks in the first 3 rounds. How do I get it to where I can have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds? That's if I'm a general moving into the attack this draft, I look at the 5 guys I come out of this draft first, just simply the 3 that I could walk out if I just sit on the 3 that we would have if we sit in our position. And I think the talent would all be so collectively the same. Take those 3 and take these 5, put them all together, and they're all at about the same kind of upside level. As far as you're not getting one player that's just, well, this guy's star power right here. this guy's got Hall of Fame potential right here. So I go, why go 3 when I can go 5? And it's in this year of the tier 2, it was like this last year a bit as well. It's again back in that stage again in this year, in my opinion. Megan says Kool-Aid is the kid's name. Is that the kid's name? Wow. Well, it's a nickname, but it's what they call him. So I'll write it in. King Bomber trade out the 16 for the late first and a second. Get Colson and Murphy or Sweat or something. Bingo. So the way I would think, here's the way I would ideally do it, King. You go 16 to 25, you get a second. You go 25, and I would go 25 to like 4 and see if I could pull in another late round second. Maybe I only get another late, or maybe I get just an early third on that. But then I've still got, then I'm picking at 4. I've got, let's be realistic. Let's say it's an early third, so that gives us 3 third-round picks and 2 second-round picks. What I would then try to do is I would try to package like a 4th-round pick and that early 3rd-round pick to bump myself back up in, I think, the second. And maybe you're only able to get 4 picks done with this when it's all said and done, but something in, like those lines. And then, like you say, in that second round, what you essentially seek to target is not exactly this. You take the value board, right? So I'm not looking at just targeting on these guys, but you'd go Graham Barton. So you go Graham Barton, Junior Colson, Cooper Bebe, Edgerrin Cooper, Tavondre Sweat, Troy Fatanu. Come back to the linebacker later on, maybe. But you do something like that with the 1-2, and then you come back into that 3rd round with a couple of picks, and then you're able to, come back around and still get a couple of really good players. And that collective, on top of the fact you're able to target guys that then I think would think perfectly fit to McDonald's defense and what he wants to accomplish in that defense, specifically the versatility aspect. That would be, I think, the smart approach to the draft. King Bomber says, yeah, JPJ just turned 21, incredibly young. It's part of something I hadn't thought about initially in my evaluation of him, King. And that's why it is always, when I say with these boards, you'll see things slide a lot up to the final day, and I think that they really should, for anybody that does a horizontal board or big board or that, you should never be at a place in February that's where you finish up at when we get to late April. You've got to continually, I go back and rewatch tape on these guys that I've already looked at tape to just, okay, make sure on this. I want to, do I really, I've got this in my notes. Is that really what I saw? Okay, well, I'm hearing, especially when I hear perspectives on things I miss, like details like that you miss, that make you go back and relook at it. And Jackson maybe pushed himself up into like a 1st round range for me when it's all said and done. I may put Van Pran down in the 2nd. It's kind of trending that way in my mind a bit, but I do like Van Pran, and I think both of those guys can play some guard if you need to in a pinch. Decade worth of great center play if he hits, says King. That's right. King Bomber says, seems like for the Hawks needs, we need a lot of 2nd rounders. That's what I'm looking at doing here. You and I are thinking alike on that one. Radu says, don't need that 2nd from the trade. We'll trade down and trade for players. We'll be fine. I think we will. Makes it still pissy they don't have that 2nd rounder looking at that B. I think they're going to pick it up. I think he's going to find a way, as others are saying below Megan. I think John's going to find a way to make that happen. So I don't think that my bold take on this, whether we're able to trade back Uber style or just once, John's going to find a way to get a 2nd round pick back. Hell or high water. Griff says B are Sweat and or Murphy instant starters. I think Tavondre Sweat is more of your instant starter because he plays the nose tackle, and your nose tackle position is more open to that being upgraded. If you have Leonard Williams brought back, Mike Morris is in the building, and you still have Draymond Jones here, you could easily find yourself with Byron Murphy being your 4th 3 tech on the roster out the gate. I mean, is he going to be better than Draymond Jones instantly? I don't know. I don't think he would. I know he's not better than Leonard Williams. He's probably better than Mike Morris, maybe a third. But again, Mike Morris has a year head start on the development side, being in the building and all that. Does that not then maybe factor out a little bit on this too? So I do like Murphy, but we are getting, when it does come to that defensive line, it's a little bit more about the nose tackle, where you got old Jaron Reed in there who played too many snaps this year, and then you got young and untested kind of Cameron Young. Radu says we don't need that second from that last trade. Leonard Williams is better than 80% of the guys in the draft defensively in this 2 rounds. That was a good trade with the no contract paid. Yeah, I think you got out of it what you're hoping to get from him. And I still remain happy with the trade, and I still remain in the position here, Radu, that they're going to re-sign him, which at that point makes it absolutely worthwhile as a trade because, as you say, you weren't going to get that kind of talent anywhere else. None of these guys, looking at this list here, none of these defensive tackles here I'm going to show you here on that left-hand side of the board there, you'll notice there's a lot of them that are in the second round. I've got a lot of guys in the third round. You know, these are all decent guys. None of these guys are Leonard Williams. None of these guys got Leonard Williams' upside. Not in my opinion. A lot of good talent there, but yeah, I agree. King says, yeah, Schneider is known for his trades. If the chess pieces fall the right way, top five top 100 picks would be awesome. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm not usually the guy that's always been a guy on this. When I first started the channel, I would have been a guy to say, no, let's start trying to trust into more of the value picks of the board. We're in more of a go for mode. We need more of the, let's try to target in on guys. Maybe let's even be more opened up to trading up. But where we stand now with where it's at, where the roster's at, with what McDonald's going to want, the change that you're going to want to naturally build into this process, then getting in that top 100. And as you can see with this board, if you take away from it, you'll notice like this is a little bit my proof to the pudding is where you can see on the defensive side of it, I've got there's no blue chip guys, right? Because when they're bolded here on the offensive side, that's how you can tell when I've got a blue chipper is when they're in bold. So I've got no blue chip defensive tackles. They're all or defensive players. They're all just basically, first round players. But then you can see that there's a pretty good little glut of guys second to third round. All of them in a similar place. All of them right in that little place. And honestly, I haven't even gotten through all of the second, third round potential guys where I think that list will still be much more added to as we go along. And that's the part that stands out to why I say get in that top 100. Find yourself in there. Make it happen. Megan, there you go. Megan don't like that pick, Rod, dude. Megan, she's been not happy about that second rounder for a minute. Yeah, I hate moving down. I was all for picking at 9 a few years ago. Current situation begs for a trade down where we need depth and how the draft class is looking. That's another great example. I mean, the Charles Cross pick is exactly one where if you don't pick Cross, you're going back and you're ending up at that dip into tier 2. Cross was still in tier 1 of that draft. That draft had 12 players, maybe tier 1 in that one, 13. And you're going from Charles Cross to Trevor Penning. That was your drop at that point, and it was going to be a precipitous one. So, sometimes you do have to sit back. Sometimes the draft and its value standpoint calls for you to remain and not move back. But we're at 16 on this one. We're already deep into tier 2 range by that point. Just might as well call that ball there with it, King says also Bauer's been falling in recent mocks. What if he fell to 16? If he falls to, I've maintained King Bomber. He's the one guy, if he falls to 12, I trade up for. What's he going to cost me? One of my third round picks to go up from 16 to 12. Fans will bitch and moan about it, but sorry, not sorry. We got the best tight end prospect that's come out in the last maybe 10 years at 16. All day long. All day long with that one. He's a blue chip guy. That's value. That's me trusting value on my board. If I've got one of the top 10 best guys dropping out of the top 10, and you have an opportunity to move up to get him for a back end, a little bit of a, late day 2 pick or something, I'll jump on that. Jump on that all day. Bomber, yeah, it would have been, Wilson was taken really quickly after Cross. So if you'd gone back to like 15, 16, at that time, you would have been left with probably the Olave option, which I didn't like having him taken that high in the draft. I thought he was a first-round guy, but should have been more of a 20s kind of guy. Yeah, the talent you're getting in the 20s to the early third is relatively the same. It's marginally better, but not enough so that you should feel like you would clutch to those 20s picks like they're, a special type of unique gold. It's all gold in there. Hold on. Somebody knocked at my door. Yeah, I'm jumping on Bowers. That would be ridiculous for him to fall that way. Now, it's possible he could fall that way, Keem Bomber, because we might find, hell, we know there's 3 quarterbacks going top 5 probably right now. We might end up with 5 to 6 in the top 10, as crazy as that sounds, because Bo Nix is getting love in the top 10. Penix is out there running faster than any quarterback at the Senior Bowl and throwing piss missiles all over the football field. So this very well could go into a range where we find, okay, all those quarterbacks get taken. Then you're going to need about 3 or 4 tackles taken in that span, right? Because that's always going to go without saying that your Olu Fashanu and Joe Alts, those guys are not lasting past 10. So then that occurs. You have Marvin Harrison in there. He's not lasting past 10, so let's take it. If we get 5 quarterbacks taken in the top 10, and then or top 11, let's just say. So that leaves 6 other positions. If you have 2 of the tackles taken, the left tackles taken that will go, that leaves you basically 4 spots then. Harrison goes. That takes you down to 3. Then does somebody want Malik Neighbors or Mims or J.C. Latham? Or, there's a lot of options there offensively. And then there's options defensively where a team might want a Dallas Turner off the edge or want a Zerzon Newton at that point. Hell, at this rate, maybe even Byron Murphy raises up by that point. So then you could find him dipping at that, or it just doesn't land to a team's need for what they're looking for. Feed Me says, do you think people like Jim deserve general manager power because it worked with Pete duo due to his background, but after the first 5 or 6 years, you take back the rings? I think that I don't think it's a smart thing to do it, Radu. I don't, or not Radu, sorry, Feed Me. I don't think it's a smart approach to take. I think that it's one, though, that you have to be due by necessity at times. I don't think that, for instance, Allen wanted to do it with Carroll when he was hiring Carroll, but he knew that was what it was going to take to pull Carroll out of the college ranks. Just like that was what it was going to take to bring Holmgren from Green Bay. You had to give him a carrot. You had to provide something. So it becomes that. It becomes, what is the power of them as a coach? How good are they as a coach that I can override this thing I don't want to kind of do on the other side of it? And I think there's rare coaches that's the case you'll do that for. Yeah, I think that Harbaugh is one of those coaches that you would say, I would do this for him, though, because I think that he's earned the right to be able to request that. I wouldn't have given it to him here, obviously, because I like Schneider and I don't want to, if the general manager thing had been more open up here, that would have been different. But it's something I would fight at every turn doing. Well, Angry Nate, I personally don't care for picks. Would rather use them on already established players in the league. Why risk a pick when you don't know if it's a bust or not? Well, you get the cheap club control years. Can't have everybody on the roster making prime time money, You got to have some of those guys that are kind of cheap and effective. Offensive talent's plentiful. Tight position is probably the least valuable position. Maybe, just maybe. Might happen, man. It would be crazy, but it's possible. And if it's on the back of those quarterbacks going in the top 10, 3 in the top 5, and then you watch Nix and Penix go in the top 11, suddenly that looks a lot different where we're sitting at 16, doesn't it? Bomber, Sweat, Murphy, Newton have to last the second, right? If I was making a guess right now in the moment, I would say that Zerzon Newton is on the edge of being a first-round guy by most talent evaluators with a chance to slip into the second. Tavondre Sweat would be a second. And I think Byron Murphy has a chance to rise into the first, though he's sitting right at the top of the second as well. They're all in about the same place in probably their consensus standing across the league as we currently sit. But Murphy definitely is coming up boards, and his tape's going to be fun, so it's might be enough to kind of keep pushing him up. Friday says, do you forgot that trading is a thing in free agency? We get as much as we can from the first and be happy with it. Do you forget that trading's a thing in a free agency? We get as much as we can from the first and be happy with it. Yeah. I'm not sure what you're saying on that one, Rondu. I'm sorry. Oh, you're talking to Megan. Sorry. Combine might make the differences bigger because we're really in the process. It might. Possible. For more Seahawks, how would you feel if they cut Draymond and gave Leo the 3-year $50 million to $60 million? I'd be fine with it. I'd be okay with it. I think that there's more guys that are, it's more advantageous with other guys to cut him than it is with Draymond. And that Draymond's going to fit to the defense that McDonald's going to want to run. He's the kind of player I think McDonald would like with the versatility he provides and where you can line him up. But also because of the fact that you wait a year and then let's say you want to cut Draymond then next year, the savings are so much more substantial versus this year where you're going to have to do a post-June 1st designation. Boy, hand grenade B, you think Pete helps Mike with the ins and outs of being a head coach? Nothing to do with personnel and players. Do I think Pete? No, I think Pete will be probably pretty hands off in this situation. He might come in from time to time and say what's up, but there won't be like I don't think there'll be a real. I don't know on that. I'm not sure. I would think generally not, but it's possible. Pete's a magnanimous enough guy to be willing to, be that resource for him. King Bomber says 3 quarterbacks, 3 tackles, 3 receivers are all slated to go in the top 15. So there you go. So that's 9. Add 2 more quarterbacks on there. That puts you at 11. We're sitting at 16. I'm calling who's ever at 11, and I'm saying, here, we'll throw you a 3rd round pick. Let us move up to 11. You're back to 16. You got a 3rd. And I'm taking Brock Bowers. I would do that all day if the draft played that way. He's the only guy just about that I would do this in the draft for in that way. I don't. Yeah, maybe a quarterback, though not Nix or Penix. But he would be the only guy that I would do that probably for. That'd be fun, King Bomber. Be a lot of fun. I know we're talking a lot about cuts recently, but do you think that maybe we can trade some of these guys? I think Tariq Woolen, Trey Brown, you have some potential to move them in trade. I don't think Quandre Diggs has any trade value. Jamal Adams has no trade value. Brian Monet has no trade value. Dwayne Eskridge has no trade value. Nick Bellore has no trade value. I mean, who else is really a target at that point? You could have Draymond Jones, theoretically, that you could move in a trade. Sure, but then what are you getting for him? Maybe a 5th? Maybe. And remember with Draymond, then that means you take the full hit of the dead money hit this year versus having it split into 2 years if you make him a post-June 1st designation. Because with the trade, it just speeds up and hits, bam, instantaneously. Ski Nation, man, did we miss you? Did you get another call? Ski Nation? You said you were back after the call, man, but lost you. We're gonna have you had some questions, man. I didn't mean to put you off at the front. So if you're still there, Ski, hit me up. I was trying to get through those videos earlier, so sorry about that. It's been a little bit of a rush thing today, just trying to jump from one to the next. Mel says, well, early start. We already talked about Grubb and Engstrom. We have it. Yeah, we did start a little early today. Brendan wanted to get a little bit of the B&B show off a bit early today. So we're doing the B&B at 6. So we did a little bit of a startup. Well, Ski Nation, Sorry, man. Hit me up if you're sorry I missed you on the deal on that. You must have got pulled away again. But Grubb's a great hire, Snail. Would be a great hire. I know you as a Coug would not like it, but nonetheless, I think it would be fantastic. Shows he's willing to not just go sit inside the box as far as his outlook on the offense needing to be, run heavy, and we just got to protect the defense and eat the time of possession. Hey, he's maybe willing to bring in an air raid guy. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Megan says, if we are going quarterback in this draft, where do we get it without the second round pick? It'll be third round. And there'll be some guys in there that'll be in there that'll be interesting. Jordan Travis might be there. Spencer Rattler might be in there. Joe Milton. Michael Pratt. There might be a few guys in there that could be interesting. King Bomber, but moving Adams is more feasible if you eat the dead money, because I think it's year one, $6 million deal for the receiving team, and they can cut him with no penalty the year after. Is more feasible if you can eat the dead money. Moving Adams is more feasible if you eat the dead money, because I think I don't think Adams has any trade value, but yeah, you'd post June 1st designate Adams, because you split that $20 million dead money up into 2 seasons. Yeah, I don't think Adams is going to have any trade value out there, King, because his tape's horrible from last year. His tape's not been great since he's come to Seattle, quite frankly, before the injury. He wasn't playing at a high level across the board. And the game is moving in a way that's a little bit away from Jamal Adams' skill set. It's moving towards the split safety. It's moving towards the strong safety that can do free safety stuff. And that's not Jamal Adams' game. It's going towards, people were asking me initially about Jamal Adams in this defense. It's like Jamal Adams is the furthest cry that you could find from Hamilton that the Ravens have at that same strong safety spot that we have than when we have in Adams. And it's like completely remarkably different players. And I just don't think he really fits in these modern NFL world anyway as a skill set that's reduced. And then on top of that fact, you throw in that he's got this crazy recent injury history, not just a slight injury history thing, like fingers fused together. Maybe the ligament injury will come back to front. Maybe it won't. I don't think there's a team looking to really try to give up any value for that at this point. They'll take a flyer on him as a vet minimum, maybe, or something along those lines, but not anything else, I wouldn't think. Kid from Tennessee is interesting, King Bomber. He's a little rough around the edges, but he got a big old arm. He can throw it a country mile. Snail says, nah, B, I wouldn't hate it unless they draft Penix too. Not because he's a Husky, but because I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. Fair? Totally fair. I'm glad to hear you'd be okay with it. I know that's hard for you to say as a Coug. Yeah, Adams has just been bad. And especially in coverage, he's lost. Sometimes as a strong safety in this league, you can't just take running backs all the time in coverage. You're going to have to take an athletic tight end that can move. You're going to have to handle a wide receiver in space in cover 2. I mean, it's just really bad with him. And it's only gotten worse with the fact that he can't move as well as he once did. Femi, do you think we will have a Will Levis situation in the draft this year? Penix is possible, because Penix has different things going on than Levis. With Levis, it was not really the injuries. It was just, can the kid handle pressure in the pocket, and can he calm down his wild ways? With Penix, it's, man, the guy's old, and boy, the injury history. And he's left-handed. But it's possible that he would be that guy, I think, that could dip down like that. Well, Hand Grenade, I like how Mike knows his quarterbacks, and you need to protect him and help. He does. Yeah, I do too. King, I've also seen the LSU guy drop in some mocks. Maybe he falls to the early teens. I don't say King because he's gonna light up the post-draft process. Like the way he's built, he's got that Anthony Richardson kind of thing going. where, oh, shoot. Hold on, folks. I got to adjust some. Oh, man. Shouldn't do things at 3 in the morning. Note to self. There we go. Set up the stream for. We got him taken care of there. LSU already drop. I don't think he's going to drop, King. He's going to light it up. He's going to run a 4.43, 740 and throw it 70 yards at combine, and everybody's going to be like, oh, ah. Snail says if Penix had better throws against Michigan, they might have won. The offensive scheme did not look like the problem. No, Penix had a lot of misses in that game. He did, to your point. Just wasn't on it like he was that Texas game. B show's going to be late. All right. Well, let's wrap it on up here because I've got about 10 minutes here. I need to get a little more coffee going here for the B&B show, as we'll be going on in 20 minutes over on the B&B side. So quick turnaround here over to the B&B show with some things to discuss, especially about this hire with Mike McDonald, talk a little bit about this press conference, certainly a little bit about Grubb. Want to Ski Nation, sorry we missed you in the chat. I'm going to do, we'll do another member stream here real shortly and try to see if I can catch you again here, Ski. So, man, I feel kind of bad, man, because I know you wanted to chop up some things and talk over some stuff, but it looked like you got kind of pulled back away a little bit. So sorry about that, brother. We'll get you hooked up though. The next time, I won't always have videos like this. Sometimes we'll just have kind of an open Q&A thing going on, but just like the press conference going, thought we'd lead with a little bit of that stuff. Jane Daniels would be awesome. I'd love to have Jane Daniels. I just don't think he's gonna. I think he's gonna go kill it at the combine and pro days, and he'll gain another 10 pounds, and everybody will. And he's at 215 now. Oh, he'll raise on up them boards. Raise on up in the boards. Well, I thank you to all of my members and patrons of this channel. I really do appreciate you guys. As I say, you keep the lights on here with your support to the channel as you do. So thank you so much to that. We'll keep more of these shows going. Expect more of these. I'm putting some clips together for some future member shows here on kind of in the mind of Mike McDonald in regards to some more things about how he thinks about what he thinks about on the football field, especially some more particulars when it comes to his individual approach on the football field itself, and how he guides the players and what he looks for from them. You guys are tremendous, though, in that support. Thank you very much to all my patrons, all my members out there. We'll be back in 15 minutes here with the B&B show, but until that time, my fellow Hawk fans, the audio was crap? The live stream was bad? Oh, you're talking about the Mike McDonald thing? Okay. Not Matt. No, you're talking about something else. Sorry, I got distracted. All right. Well, see you guys again here in 15. Till that time, please, fellow fans,